twilight deepened, plunging the Didiaki checkpoint into an ominous darkness. The wail of sirens split the air like a premonition of something dreadful, and soldiers nervously scanned the perimeter. Over the past 6 months, the zone had significantly expanded, and its horrifying inhabitants, with relentless force, were trying to break through its borders. No one dared to think about what might happen if even one of the 6 checkpoints failed to hold out tonight. The zone's radioactive flora and fauna would spread for miles around, destroying everything in their path. This could not be allowed. My partner Max and I were stationed on the first floor of one of the abandoned checkpoint buildings. We were discussing plans to repel the inevitable attack when Max's radio, which was strapped to his gear, suddenly screeched, breaking the silence. "First to third, do you read?" Or, "Third here, we hear you loud and clear." Or, Max responded quickly, looking at me with anxiety in his eyes. "What's the situation on your end?" he asked, trying to mask his concern. "Everything's under control, no breakthrough expected for now, finishing up fortifications." "How about the others?" "Fourth, first and second are green, ready. You're almost done too, but fifth is silent. Probably off drinking vodka somewhere in the bushes, leaving the radio behind." I thought to myself but kept my thoughts to myself. "Understood, I'll let you know if anything changes. Everyone stay alert, over and out." The commander of the third checkpoint ordered before turning off the radio. The perimeter preparations were nearing completion. Sandbags were piled high, creating an illusion of safety. Snipers took positions in the towers, and wooden stakes with sharpened ends were visible about 40 meters away. It seemed like all measures were taken, but my heart tightened with the foreboding that it might not be enough. These fortifications could hardly stop the mutants eager to break free, but they still provided a sliver of confidence in this nightmare. My thoughts were interrupted by Max's voice as he began talking to the fifth. "Excellent, so everyone's ready? Well, good luck, guys. Max, everything okay?" I asked as he put the radio back in his pocket. "Yeah, Gvozdy, everything's set. The breach will start any minute, take your position," he said, giving me a friendly shove on the back, and we both went down the stairs. Outside, we split into our combat positions, each ready for the possibility that this night could be our last. Taking position in one of the checkpoint towers, I carefully laid out the 4 grenades issued to me for a potential breach and reflexively patted my thigh holster, feeling for my 5.7. It was not just a gesture but a habit developed over years of service. Checking equipment over and over had become second nature, especially at moments when the tension in the air could be felt almost physically. With only minutes left until the assault began, I felt my hands starting to betray me with a tremor. It wasn't fear, although that was undeniable too, but something else. For a week, this tremor had been plaguing me, not strongly noticeable but enough to interfere in critical situations. To steady my aim, I had to press the grip of the pistol, almost merging with it, hoping it would help compensate for the shaking. "First ready?" A voice crackled over the radio like a lightning strike. "Ready?" I replied, trying to hide my tension. "Second? Ready? Third? Ready?" Max's voice, our commander, cut through the static with such hatred that even through the interference, his anger was palpable, like a fist to the chest. "We'll kill every filthy creature in the zone." His words reached me muffled, but that didn't matter. What was important was the steel in his voice, the steel that we all had to embody at that moment. The roll call ended and a brief, agonizing silence followed. The sky, once bright and clear, now seemed to be boiling, turning a disturbing blood-red color. An air of impending horror hung heavily. The breach had begun. Many skeptical stalkers claimed that a breach was just an intensified emission, nothing special. They thought so until a particularly horrifying incident occurred. One evening in the 100 Rads bar, where military personnel gathered after duty, Andre, who had just returned from a breach, was relaxing, downing shot after shot of vodka. A drunken rookie stalker staggered into the bar. Through his haze, he began boasting that a breach was not terrifying and that the aftermath was negligible, like spitting in a puddle. Andre, used to facing death, was surprised by such bravado and offered the guy a bet. "If you can survive at least an hour of a breach, I'll admit you were right. But if you can't, you'll have to deal with the consequences." His words sounded like a challenge and the whole bar fell silent, waiting. The result of that bet is still discussed in 100 Rads. As expected, the stalker didn't last even 30 minutes. He was hiding behind sandbags when a pseudo-dog appeared out of nowhere. Before he could even aim, he was torn to shreds right before the eyes of the stunned soldiers. Now, with mutants already appearing on the horizon, there was no time to think about past stories. They moved towards us with a single-minded purpose, like a living nightmare, emerging from the depths of the zone. To my right, the deafening roar of 3 machine guns opened fire on the advancing horde. Following them, shooters from the first floors and snipers from the nearby towers joined in. I didn't hesitate either. Shifting the crosshairs to the approaching creatures, I squeezed the trigger. The loud rifle shot sliced through the air, and the barrier I had targeted fell as if cut down. The recoil from the shot shook my shoulder, but I tightened my grip on the weapon, feeling it become an extension of my body. Mutants began to spread out, hiding behind trees, but then the ground trembled, and pseudo-gigants emerged onto the battlefield with controllers riding on their backs. Their terrifying figures, like lords of hell, used these monsters as their personal pack animals. I whistled in astonishment at the sight, which still seemed unreal. But there was no time to be distracted. Even more horrific creatures could follow. As soon as the monsters poked out from their cover, they were mowed down by bursts of machine gun fire, leaving no chance for survival. Aiming again, I targeted another monster, this time a bloodsucker. At that moment, the entire zone seemed to embody the very nightmare that was now rushing towards us. Hasta la vista! I shouted through the noise of the battle, pulling the trigger. In the cacophony, which had not ceased for 10 minutes, I didn't immediately notice the ringing in my ears. But that wasn't the worst. When dozens of guns are roaring around you, such details cease to matter. The machine gunners focused their fire on the right sector, where zombies were moving in a dense crowd. I set aside my rifle, grabbed a grenade, and, opening the window, threw an RGD-5 straight into the pack of blind dogs. The explosion shattered them into pieces. The outcome was predictable. Gvozdy, get over here now. Max's baritone voice thundered through the radio hanging on my gear. We need fire support. I quickly gathered my ammunition, stuffed it into my pockets, and grabbed my rifle before rushing to the neighboring tower. The streets and the forest, swarming with mutants, now resembled a slaughterhouse. Blood everywhere, torn bodies, and the smell of death hanging in the air. Looking at the machine gunners, I noticed that 2 were reloading while the 3rd continued to pour lead into the creatures. I climbed the stairs to the 2nd tower. Sector 4, move fast, roared Chernichev. I didn't hesitate. Despite the friendly relationship between Max and me, I knew that disobeying an order from a guy like him meant signing my own death warrant. I took up position next to him, fiercely defending the checkpoint. The machine gunners finished reloading, and the gunfire roared again in unison, like infernal drums. On the 1st floor, soldiers were also denying the mutants any chance, dousing them with bullets. I drew my 5.7 from its holster and began shooting at snorks approaching from the side. 40 minutes had passed since the breach began, but it felt like the battle had been going on forever. Snorks, clumsily hopping, neared our fortifications. I emptied an entire magazine into them before one of the machine gunners was grabbed by the neck and dragged away, disappearing into the chaos. But the mutants had no intention of retreating. The shooters on the 1st floor quickly switched to the snorks, desperately trying to hold the line of defense. Damn it, we've lost a machine gunner, spat Max, reloading his VSS. In the distance I saw new waves of creatures. Chimeras, bloodsuckers, barriers, dwarfs, poltergeists, pseudo-gigants. Everything the zone could produce was coming at us, turning this place into a true hell on earth. Today's breach was much tougher than all the previous ones. The number and variety of mutants had increased exponentially. Without wasting any time, I pulled the pins from 3 grenades and threw them as far as the windows would allow. The grenades hit their targets perfectly, breaking the silence with their explosions. Behind the farthest trees, 6 zombies and the same number of snorks were blown to pieces. But before I could catch my breath, the cavalry arrived, the final trump card of today's breach. Controllers, riding on pseudo-gigants and chimeras, charged towards the palisade, smashing our fortifications into splinters. The machine gunners scattered but immediately hunkered down in the grass, unleashing a hail of bullets on the advancing creatures. Chimeras, with their redundant organs, were almost invulnerable. How the hell are you still alive? I shouted in fury, shooting at these resilient monsters. But the fighting quieted not because we ran out of ammo, but because the machine gunners, one by one, were being hit from behind. Snorks crept up unnoticed, sinking their rotten teeth into the soldiers' throats, tearing out their windpipes and ending lives in the blink of an eye. Retreat. Max grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the stairs. It was only then I realized that no one was shooting anymore. The machine gun fire had ceased, the snipers were silent, and the shooters on the 1st floors no longer showed signs of life. We barely made it down the stairs when a snork lunged at us. It appeared so suddenly that I barely had time to process what was happening. Only minutes remained until the end of the breach. The creature latched onto Max's thigh, and without missing a beat, he struck the mutant with the stock of his rifle. The snork recoiled and I drew my 5.7 and fired. The mutant shuddered and fell. Looking out the window, I realized there was no way out. There were too many mutants. Breaking through was impossible. I shared my conclusions with Chernichev and he turned to me. "Behind you," I yelled, noticing another snork flying straight at Max. But it was already too late. The creature had clamped onto his neck, snapping his spine with a crunch, and Max, gasping out something, fell dead. Panic overwhelmed me. The instinct for self-preservation took over. I hit the creature with the butt of the SVD and kicked it away, stepping back. I grabbed Max's VSS and tried to aim, but the mutant had already vanished. I felt pain in my neck and realized that a snork had sneaked up behind me. It had latched onto my neck like a leech and was slowly, savoring the process, starting to tear off my head. "They've breached. Damn it, they've killed everyone. This is fifth to first," came a hoarse voice over the radio. "No. Second checkpoint, help." I screamed, but there was no response. "We've lost contact with the second checkpoint. Hey, is anyone out there? Damn the zone. Maybe I'm not dead after all. Maybe this is just a terrible nightmare?" A thought flashed through my mind and I bitterly smiled at my delirious fantasies.